and welcome to America's Home Cooking. What I'm making today for my family is a family style whole wheat bread, but the difference is that I'm going to make this as sourdough. All right, so my yeast is already, the culture is fully activated. I did two 12-hour risings. I started off with a half a cup of my liquid culture with a half a cup of bread flour. I have to remember what I did, and a fourth of a cup of water. I repeated that with the flour and water, beating it each time thoroughly. Now I'm ready to put the whole thing together and shape it. So I'm going to go ahead and get these bowls started. Where did I put it? You're going to need they're 8.5 by, I don't even know the size of the bread pans. Make sure you know what you've got here. It's about 4.5 by 8.5 bread pans. This is going to be a light whole wheat. It's not going to be a dark one or a heavy loaf. It's a very mild one. It's very, very nice. Okay, now we'll start adding the ingredients. Now I need my glasses again. Okay. I'm warming up the rest of the water they just want it lukewarm. They don't want it really cold. And you're going to add 2 eggs to this. And you're going to need 1/4 of a cup of honey. And you're going to need 2 teaspoons of salt. because this is whole wheat, I'm not going to be adding too much extra to it, except some powdered milk. I'm going to have a lot of wheat flour in it already. So I'll add in 1/4 of a cup, which is 4 tablespoons. And what else do they want? Oh, butter. And they want 1/4 of a cup of buttermilk. We're going to be adding approximately 3 cups of flour to this. Let's see, what's the other one? Okay. Now, if you want to make this in the regular and not as a sourdough, when I shape it and I put it to rise, I'll read the ingredients of how you have to do that, but you still have to add everything else that I've added. Well, maybe I could read it to you now. All right. You know I've already added everything. Now, if you're doing it the regular way and you just don't want a sourdough, you're going to need a package of yeast and 1.5 cups of warm water. Okay, and what you're going to do is let it sit to foam for about 5 minutes. Then you start adding everything like I do, and you'll be right up with me. Now, when you mix it all up, remember you'll have to grease the bowl and put it in the bowl, flip it, put a towel on, let it sit for an hour. And then you'll be at the point where I'm shaping them to put into the oven after they rise, okay? And we're going to be adding 3 cups of whole wheat flour to this. That's why I'm not adding any wheat. But I am going to add some seeds. Now, the broadleaf plantain seeds that are high in omegas, I'm going to add 2 teaspoons. As soon as I can find them, here they are. I'm going to put a teaspoon in for each bread, and this recipe makes 2 loaves because these have the omegas in them. Now, if you can't harvest these, flaxseed is high in omegas and you can use them in place of it, okay? But this is just making the bread more nutritious. See, there's something about refined food that you don't know about, and I might as well explain it to you while I'm making this bread so you have an understanding. These whole grains and stuff, they could not can and keep it for a long time. It will go bad. You have to take precautions and stuff and put it on the shelf. They're not going to do it. They're not going to put them in refrigerators and stuff like that. They have a shorter lifespan because they're natural. And because they're natural, they have everything in them. But they have to refine it to take all these nutrients and stuff out of it so that it will last on the shelf for years. And if you take a look, they'll say good for another 2 years. Look at your canned goods. Read those dates. They'll tell you you got years ahead. You don't have weeks or months. And they have a shelf life, not a refrigerator life, a shelf life. And the only way they can do that is to process it and take everything out. So they put 3 or 4 or 6 back in, and they say it's nutritious, and it's not. And that's why our health is declining. As a country as a whole, they have refined food so much, and they have found out that the nutrients are taken out, and we're not getting enough in the vitamin department. I mean, you can pop pills till doomsday. It won't save your health. And a lot of other things are in these foods that we need that they don't even have names for. So the more you go and learn how to work with things that are natural in their state before they go through the refining and the refining and the refining and the refining, the better your health is going to be. I mean, the yeast is just 1 micro, but there's over 400. And you got to do them in the air a certain way and catch them. And that's what I want to show you if you want to make your own sourdough. And you feed it every day. And if you get too much and you haven't made bread, all you have to do is take out so much, put it in your compost. The yard will take it and eat it. Okay? Now, they want an all-purpose flour. They do not want bread flour on this one. So that's why I do a lot of what I do. And I'm bringing it to your attention so you can help yourself. I know everybody's working and everything else, but if you want it bad enough, you'll do it. But just remember, the more refined food you buy, the less healthy your family is. People didn't have to go to doctors all the time. I've also read something else that I find very interesting is that I've been reading up on plants that we can eat. And they don't have anything special in them. They really don't. They just have a combination of vitamins or minerals or acids that the body needs. And they say it clears up this and this. So if the foods we eat are full of nutrients like they're supposed to be and not refined, we'd be getting the same thing in the food. So if we supplement it with those and make them as teas and stuff, we have our protection. Because I've been reading, and all what they're saying is they cure this and they have this, this, and this in it. And then I read foods that we eat, they have this, this, and this in it. I said, well, then that makes sense. That really makes sense, a lot of sense. They're not special or anything. It's that they have nutrients in them just like what we eat, except that we're eating such refined food, it's not there anymore. So then we end up getting sick because we end up with a problem. And yet it's all out there for us. But we're thoroughly convinced in something else, in a different way. They have find out that some B vitamins cause mental, if it's depleted, mental problems, crankiness. Vitamin C keeps the personality nice and pleasant. But if you have a high requirement, you have to take a lot of them, of whatever you're missing. Or that your family seems to have a gene that needs more than the average person. But it's all out there. And it's in the foods, and the foods aren't refined, but the foods are refined. And eating a piece of fruit is not going to do it. It's got to be everything. So, I know a lot of people don't like using whole grains. They're too hard. They don't cook as fast as they want. But I'd rather spend a little extra time in the kitchen than having to run to the doctor and deal with a child that has a disease. That's my personal opinion. My father went hunting. My grandmother can. My mother can to a point. Nonu, my grandfather had the garden. My grandmother had it. We had our sweets, but we ate. It's just that my mother didn't like whole grains. She liked French bread and white bread. So I detoured from that, but I can. I dehydrate. If you need to hydrate, you just take the fluid out and all those nutrients sit there, and you can make teas with them. And I'll show you what I've been dehydrating. I've been doing a lot of it. So there's a joke that goes around. I know if you're a nutritionist, you'll know this joke. You're better off eating the cardboard box that the food came in than the food itself. It has more nutrients. That's a joke. It's becoming a reality. So what I try to do is harvest what I can in the wild. I'll dehydrate it and use it any way I can. What we call weeds in this country, which I'm finding out are not. But you need a book and you need to research. I wouldn't recommend you just go out there and start eating grass. There are certain wild plants that we can eat. A lot of people call weeds. One guy wrote and said, I thought that was a weed. I've been ripping it out of my yard all these years. I thought that was so cute. Oh, and they want 4 to 4.5 cups of white flour because I had used some of the flour on my risings. I didn't use as much flour as, well, I did, it's just that you didn't see me, okay? So they do want 2 to 3 cups of whole wheat and 4 to 4.5 cups of all-purpose flour. All right? Remember, when your dough doubles in that bowl, you sit there, punch it down, and shape it and get it into 2 loaf pans, because this makes 2 loaves. Okay. Pinch your ends and make sure they stick together. Mine is going to sit till it doubles. Now I'll read it for everybody who's not doing it. Sourdough. As soon as I put my glasses on, I'll read it. Okay. You will need 1 package of dried yeast, 1½ cups of warm water, which is about 105 to 115 degrees. Okay. You need 2 eggs, 1/4 cup of honey, 2 teaspoons of salt, 1/4 cup butter melted, 2 to 3 cups of whole wheat flour. Make sure that you let your flour get to room temperature or it will take longer, okay? And you want 4 to 4½ cups of all-purpose flour. Now they give full warning on this. Be especially careful not to kill the yeast when dissolving with hot water. If you go above 115, you're going to kill it. I keep mine a little on the lower side, like 110. 108, somewhere around there for caution. Okay, now to start yours, and then you'll follow the steps that I'm doing. All you're going to do is in a large bowl, dissolve the yeast in warm water, and you let it stand till it becomes foamy, okay? You add everything in, and you knead it, all right? Then you sit there and, hold on. You're going to place the dough in a greased bowl. Turn to coat, cover the bowl with a damp cloth and let it rise in a warm place until double. It's going to take a little longer than an hour, like an hour and a half to 2. Don't worry about it. Then they want you to turn the dough out and divide it into 2 equal parts. Shape each into a loaf, which you saw me do, and place each into a greased loaf pan. You will be covering it with a damp cloth and let it rise for about 30 minutes or until it's double. Because mine's sourdough, I don't cover it. I have to leave it open and wait till it gets an inch above the pans. Then it's ready to cook. So I'm going to be waiting a lot longer than you, okay? Let's see. When you get to that point, and I'll be back, and we'll get it ready to cook. Okay, my bread is going to take a little longer to rise, and I have to get part 2 of this steak that I had promised you that we'd be doing, and I'm going to have to get this going. So I'm going to read the rest of the recipe to you so you know what you have to do. Now, if you have sourdough, you're making it with a sourdough, you've got to wait till your bread gets 1 inch above the bread pan, then it'll be ready to cook. For everybody else, when your bread doubles, all right, you're going to bake it at 375, and you're going to do it for 40 to 45 minutes until the bread sounds hollow. Remember when I showed you, you have to take the bread out of the pan when it comes out and put it on a rack to cool. You tap the bottom of that bread, and you've got to hear that hollow sound, and then you will know it is done. Never leave your bread in their pans. You must get them out or they become doughy again, all right? So I'll just read the last part again to you, then you'll understand. Bake bread at 375 for 40 to 45 minutes or until the bread sounds hollow when tapped. Turn the bread out onto the rack to cool. Cool completely before cutting, okay? Now, I have to get another video going and finish up on this steak that I promised yesterday. Bye-bye.